Did you know that most people are asleep? That's right, asleep. They're born asleep, they live asleep, they marry asleep, they have children asleep, they grow old asleep, they die asleep. They're asleep all the time. And the worst part of it is that they don't even know they're asleep. Most people today aren't real living human beings. They're walking zombies. They spend hundreds of hours trying to look younger or improve their relationships or pay their bills or buy that Mercedes or that beach house or a million other things. And when they finally accomplish their goals, if they accomplish their goals, they're still not happy. And they wonder why. The reason they're not happy is because they're still asleep. They're still asleep, and even worse, they're having the same nightmare. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that your career or your health or your relationships aren't important. Of course they are. And of course it's important that you care deeply about them. All I'm trying to get across is that none of these things is going to make you happy. If you want to be happy, you have to forget about the world's standards of happiness. You have to shoot for something higher. The great C.S. Lewis once said that if you aim for the earth, you will not get it. But if you aim for heaven, you'll get heaven, and you'll get the earth thrown in. But you've got to wake up first. Life is short. The same God that gave you the morning doesn't promise you the evening. Do you understand that you could be dead by tomorrow? Human beings waste so much time. People today go around pursuing happiness as if it was something they could obtain or possess or achieve. They treat happiness as if it were some kind of a shiny, colorful toy that's in the corner of the room, and all they have to do is go over and get it. But that's not the way it works. Happiness isn't about possessions. It's not about attachments. It's not about money. It's not about success. It's not even about human relationships. Those things are all wonderful, but they're all secondary. And the pleasures they bring are all dependent upon something else. Over the course of the next 6 episodes of this mini-series, we're going to discuss exactly what that something else is. My name is Anthony DeStefano, and welcome to A Travel Guide to Life. Okay, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. During this first program, I'm going to give you 6 fundamental lifetime principles, 6 starting points that you have to keep coming back to no matter what happens in your life and no matter how good or bad things get. 6 pillars on which the foundation of a consistently happy life can be built. And the first of these 6 principles is one of the most important. It's very simple, but without it, you really can't do anything else. What is it? You have to stop complaining. Now, if you're anything like me, you probably get a lot of pleasure from whining and moaning and complaining. It just seems to be a common human trait. But it's time to stop right this very second. If you're ever going to solve your problems, and I don't care what those problems are, the first thing you have to do is get off your pity pot. When you really want to take control and turn your life around, there's absolutely no place for self-pity or complaining. Even if life has dealt you a bad hand and you deserve to complain, it's still useless. It doesn't help you. Life is too short. It goes by in a flash. You just can't spend a lot of your time moaning and complaining. You have to take ownership. You have to take responsibility. You have to wake up and do something. I'm not trying to be cruel here. My point isn't to make you feel guilty. It's to make you get honest. Remember, it's not just you I'm saying this to, it's me too, it's everyone. Whether you're young or old, rich or poor, good or bad, we're all a bunch of crybabies. Even some of the greatest saints in history have been guilty of complaining too much. Take the great St. Paul, for instance. In one of his letters, he talks about how God had given him some kind of thorn in his flesh to torment him and keep him humble. He never says exactly what the affliction was. It could have been anything, a bad temper, a physical problem, a spiritual temptation, who knows? But he does say that he begged God 3 times to take it away. 3 times. He basically did what I was just describing a moment ago. He whined and complained to God. But you know what God said? He didn't console him or sympathize with him in any way. No, he said, enough. My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. And it's the same for us. We've got to stop complaining. We've got to remember that God has the same message for us that he had for St. Paul. Enough. My grace is sufficient. So you're down and out and you can't take it anymore. You're tired of problems. You're tired of bills. You're tired of fighting with your spouse and with your kids. You're tired of being misunderstood. You're at the end of your rope. You just want to crawl up into bed, pull up the covers, and sleep for 100 years. Enough, God says. My grace is sufficient. Now that you're weak and exhausted and feeling that you have nothing left, now we can start. Now I could finally begin helping you in a serious way. But no, you say, my family is falling apart. I just lost my job. I'm filing for bankruptcy. I'm embroiled in some huge scandal, whatever it is. Enough, God says. My grace is sufficient. But I'm grieving, you say. I just lost someone I love very much, and I can't even get myself to breathe, much less function. Well, that's something we could all understand. If someone close to you has died, you need to grieve. You need to grieve as long as it takes. You need to cry to the end of your tears. And anyone who tells you differently should really mind his own business. But eventually, when you're ready to pull down the covers and get out of bed again and venture back into the world, the same message applies to you too. My grace is sufficient. That isn't being harsh. It's being real. Where there's life, there's hope. If you're breathing right now, then it's still possible for you to turn things around. If your heart is still beating, there's still time for you to change your life for the better. Now, after you stop complaining, it's time to implement lifetime principle number 2. You've got to be honest with yourself. You've got to aim for radical honesty in your life. If you want to be happy and fulfilled and at peace, you've got to forget about comparing yourself to other people and focus on the truth about yourself. And what is the truth about yourself? The truth is that you love God all right until you stub your little toe. Then all the love goes right out the window, doesn't it? It's all about me, me, me. Listen, if you honestly analyzed all the thoughts that went through your mind during the course of a single hour, how many of them would be about you? Not many, you say? I say, stop lying to yourself. The late Stephen Covey used to talk about the 3 selves we all have. The first is our public self. That's the person we show the world, the person we are at work, the person we display to strangers and friends. That's the self that's always on its best behavior. Then there's our private self. That's who we are at home, the person we show to our spouse and our children. You don't have to be a psychologist to know that there's often a huge difference between these 2 parts of our character. But there's another self, too, a third part of our character that neither the world nor our families see, and that's our inner secret self. The secret self is that part of our identity which we keep most private. We don't show it to anyone. We don't even like to show it to ourselves. It's what we're truly thinking and feeling in that inner stream of consciousness from moment to moment. And the reason most of us would never reveal it is that it's just too embarrassing. You know what I'm talking about. It's our secret self that feels all the pride and anger and jealousy and greed and resentment and laziness and envy and lust. And sometimes, hopefully not too often, these hidden thoughts of ours are so twisted and so devious and so wrong that we can't even bring ourselves to admit that they're real, that they're actually part of our makeup. And yet, they are. Now, the personal development people all tell us that to a large extent, our happiness as human beings depends on how congruent we are, how much in sync these 3 aspects of our character are with each other. If your public self is radically different from your private self, you're going to have problems. If your secret self is radically different from your private self, you're going to have problems. And doesn't that make sense? If you live a life of hypocrisy, you're never going to be at peace. The main point for you to get now is simply that you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be aware of these different selves that you have, and you have to be aware of the bad things that you sometimes do and think. This isn't about laying any kind of guilt trip on you. We all know the truth about each other. We all know that we're all sinners. The good news is that once we recognize the ugliness and admit it to ourselves in complete, radical honesty, at least then we can move forward. The third lifetime principle we're going to talk about has to do with the body-mind-spirit connection. When things are going wrong and you're not happy and not at peace, you can't just think that you're going to change one thing and your whole life will be miraculously transformed. It won't, because what's wrong with your life is almost never just one thing. It's everything. It's the whole thing. It's all connected. When you try to separate the body, mind, and spirit and excel in just one particular area, you might have some degree of success, but your life as a whole is not going to benefit. In fact, your life as a whole might even suffer. Remember, you're a human being. That means you're a combination of body, mind, and spirit. You're not pure spirit or mind like the angels, and you're not pure matter like your cell phone. You're all three at the very same time. Now, how everything is connected is a little difficult to understand, even for the greatest theologians. But the bottom line is that it has to do with your will. Remember, all the decisions you make in life are controlled by your God-given free will. Take a look at this diagram. On one side, you have all your desires, the desires of your body, the desires of your mind, and the desires of your spirit. And on the other side, you have your conscience, the knowledge of right and wrong, the knowledge of which desires you should say yes to and which you should say no to. Over and above both of these is your will, which acts as the arbiter and judge between the two. Your will is constantly making decisions, day in, day out, year in, year out, in thousands of different situations. Your will is choosing. And the more you give in to desires that are not good for you, the more you disobey your conscience, the more your will is weakened. The will is really just like a muscle. It needs to be exercised in order to stay strong. When you don't exercise it, it shrivels up and loses all its strength. Then when it's called upon to make tough decisions in other areas of your life, it's not able to. That's why people are always complaining that they have no willpower. What this means practically is that you have no choice but to take a holistic, total person approach to life, especially when it comes to seeking happiness. You have to work on everything. You can't do it piecemeal. You can't simply lose weight and expect to be happy. You can't simply make more money and expect to be happy. You can't simply read a bunch of books and expect to be happy. You can't even just pray and expect to be happy. Even the holiest hermits have to get out into the open and exercise once in a while in order to clear their heads. Otherwise, their whole interior prayer life would dry up. So once and for all, if you want to be truly happy, truly fulfilled, and truly at peace, you have to be improving in every area of your life at the same time. You have to commit to working on the big picture, on the whole enchilada. How many times in your life have you wanted to start fresh? How many times have you said to yourself, if only I could begin from square one, everything would be different? But you can't ever get back to square one, can you? Well, guess what? You never will. The point is not to try to erase your past and start at square one. You left square one in the dust a long time ago. The point is not to begin at the beginning. That's gone, history. You're never going to see it again. The point is to turn around and start over. What's the first command they teach you in the military? They show you how to about face, right? About face simply means to turn around and go in the opposite direction. And that's exactly what you have to do in life. If you see that you're headed in the wrong direction, the first thing you have to do is stop everything, including your self-loathing and your self-analysis and your self-pity, whatever else you're brooding about, and make a decision to reverse the behavior that's causing you to go down that road. Too simple, you say? Baloney. It's not. It's the only thing you can do. It's the only choice you have. I'm not saying it's easy. Sometimes it's the most difficult thing in the world. I'm just saying it's simple. It's foundational. So many people don't believe that they have the power to turn around. They've been through life's ups and downs so many times that they've lost all confidence in themselves. But that's nonsense. As all the personal development people say, your past is not your future. Do you hear me? Your past is not your future. So your past is full of garbage. So you've screwed up 1,000,000 times. So you're damaged goods. I've got news for you. We all are. It's impossible not to be damaged in this world. So what can you do about it? There's only one option. Move forward in the right direction. The problem is, you can't move forward if you keep fixating on what happened to you in the past. Listen, how are you ever going to drive anywhere if all you ever do is look in the rearview mirror? That's exactly how many of us live our lives. We spend all our time looking in the rearview mirror instead of keeping our eyes on the road ahead of us. You know, the Bible makes some pretty mind-blowing promises when it comes to starting over. It claims, for instance, that the kind of peace you can have if you follow God's will is so special and so unlike anything you've ever experienced that it transcends all understanding. It also says in one famous passage from the book of Revelation that God can make all things new. New. This is deep stuff. God doesn't promise He's going to take you back to square one or let you start at the beginning. He doesn't even promise that He'll give you any kind of big psychological breakthroughs in terms of understanding your past. As Mother Angelica used to say, you can search all through Scripture and you won't find a single verse that says, "Blessed are they that understand." Instead, what you'll find is, "Take up your cross and follow me." If you do that, then God pledges that He'll make everything in your life brand new. He'll take all that's ever happened to you in the past, all the screw-ups and all the suffering and all the sins, and transform it into something else, something unexpected, something that actually gives you strength and peace and happiness. In order to really understand this one, we're going to have to do some physics. Remember physics from school? Remember all the laws of the universe, the law of gravity, the law of conservation of matter and energy? Well, there was another law they taught us that's absolutely essential to grasp if we ever want to understand why life can be so difficult to change. It's called the law of inertia. Do you remember what that states? An object at rest tends to stay at rest. If a chair is placed next to a desk and no one touches it, it's going to stay in that position, gathering dust till kingdom come. Things don't just move by themselves unless something makes them move, right? But guess what? The law of inertia isn't only true for physics. It's true in every area of life. It's true for human beings. It's true for businesses. It's true for governments. It's true for people who are experiencing different kinds of funks or adversity. When you're in a bad place in your life, you're essentially at rest and you tend to stay at rest. You don't want to make the hard choices necessary to correct the situation. If you've got money problems, you don't want to cut your expenses drastically or stop using your credit cards. You don't even want to look at your bills. Instead, you'd much rather watch TV or have a drink or eat or gamble or play video games or go on a vacation or have sex. Anything to distract you from your problems. Why? Because nobody wants pain. Looking at a balance sheet when you know your finances are a wreck is painful. Looking in the mirror when you're disgusted with all the flab you see is painful. The only time we actually get off our butts and take action is when the pain of not doing something becomes so great that it exceeds the pain of doing it. In other words, we sometimes get so upset by the way things are that the pressure is enough to actually push ourselves through the initial pain of moving. But is that the way you want to live your life? In some kind of a pressure cooker? Is that the way you want to spend the tiny amount of time you have on this planet? Listen, there's a better way to get yourself to move, a better way to overcome the law of inertia. And it actually involves another principle from physics. It's called momentum. Follow me here. This is one of the most important things in life to learn, and it's so simple that people forget it. When an object at rest starts to move, it moves slowly at first. It doesn't just go full speed instantaneously. It accelerates. It builds momentum. That's true for everything. The key to taking effective, long-lasting action is momentum. If you want to get out of a funk, any funk, the best thing to do is start with small steps, even the tiniest ones, but to take them consistently over the period of a few days and weeks. Once you do that, things are bound to accelerate. You know this works. You've been through it before. You know that the first trip to the gym is the hardest. It's actually torture to force yourself to go. The second trip is a little easier. The third, easier still. By the fourth time, you're raring to go. In fact, nothing can stop you from going. The same applies to getting yourself organized, or straightening out your finances, or even fixing your relationships. If you start small and force yourself through the initial period of pain, you will pick up speed. It's just a law of the universe. And it's at the heart of Christianity, too. Scripture says, do not despise small beginnings. In fact, that's what God did when He saved humanity. He started small. Now, nothing is bigger or greater or more powerful than God, right? And yet, when this same Almighty God chose to enter human history and become a man, He did so by first becoming a little baby. We can't ever forget that Jesus Christ, whom Christians believe is God, was born a child in a small manger. And before that, He was an embryo in His mother's womb. Consider the implications. If God Himself thought it was best to start small, why wouldn't we use the same strategy? So don't despise small beginnings. Pick a few random things now, a few nagging tasks, a few irritating to-do items that you haven't been able to get done in the last few months, and start working on them slowly. Resist the urge to do it all at once. Consistency is what we're aiming for. Momentum is what we're aiming for. Go do something small. Finally, the sixth and most important lifetime principle we're going to discuss today has to do with the G word, God. Nowadays, when people out there in the secular world hear you say the word God, they get so nervous. They automatically think that you're going to start preaching to them. Well, I'm not a preacher, but I am going to give you a little sermon right now on the truth about life. In fact, it might be the most important sermon you'll ever hear. And I don't intend to dilute it or sugarcoat it in any way. I'm just going to give it to you straight. If you think that you're going to make it through this crazy, schizophrenic world of ours with all its ups and downs and pains and pleasures, and somehow manage to experience peace and happiness without paying any attention to what God wants from you, you are really kidding yourself. I don't care how successful you are, or how rich you are, or how many personal development courses you've taken, or how much you think you've got it all together. But the moment life really slams you in the face with a 2x4, and if it hasn't already, trust me, it will, your whole pretty, phony, fragile facade of contentment is going to come crumbling down. Let's talk about maps for a minute. Maps are supposed to tell us how to get from one place to another, right? Well, what if the map you were using was labeled wrong? What if you wanted to get around New York City and the map you had was really a map to Los Angeles, but it said New York on it? You get lost pretty quick, wouldn't you? Well, our society today has given us a map that's labeled happiness, and it's told us to follow it. Only it's not a map to happiness. It's a map to success, or to self-improvement, or to worldly pleasures, or to sex without responsibility, or to who knows what. Most times, it just ends up being a map to misery. But the wrong label has been stuck on it, and it's been sold to us anyway. And like sheep, we blindly follow it, and then scratch our heads and wonder why we never arrive at our destination. Well, there is an accurate map to happiness, and it's the map that's been provided to us by God Himself. It's a map in the form of His 10 Commandments, His laws, His word, His sacraments, and primarily in the church He founded. Now, a lot of people don't like this map. Some don't believe it to begin with. Others just find it too difficult to follow. After all, it doesn't exactly provide us with the easiest route of passage. In fact, it takes us through some pretty rough terrain. The map promises peace and happiness, but paradoxically, it also promises that we have to suffer, and in the process might even be persecuted. People don't want to hear that, do they? But at least it's a map that claims to be true, and at least it's one that's accurately labeled. We may not always like what it says, but it's not false advertising. Most self-help experts out there don't tell you this. In their programs, they focus just on the self, and they fail to take into account the presence of God and His plan for us. If they do bother to talk about God, they conveniently put Him together with all the other areas of a person's life that needs to be improved, like your finances or your job or your level of physical fitness. But they've got everything backwards. You can't lump your relationship with God with your gym membership, Your relationship with God has to inform and infuse everything you do. It has to be over and above everything you do. It's not just one area of your life, it's the area. Well, we're not going to make that mistake here. We're never going to forget the most important foundational principle of them all. We're never going to forget the answer to these three simple questions. Where did we come from? God. Where are we going? God. What is life about? God. Okay, to sum up what we've talked about on this program, to achieve true happiness, you first need to wake up. But in order to wake up, you have to follow 6 very important lifetime principles. Principles you have to keep coming back to for the rest of your life. The first is to stop complaining and take ownership of your life. Second, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to recognize your shortcomings and your sins. Third, you have to remember that you are one person, mind, body, and spirit. You can't just try to improve in one area. You've got to work on the whole picture. Fourth, you've got to remember that your past is not your future. You have the power to change. Fifth, you've got to start small. Remember the power of momentum. You don't have to change overnight. Little steps taken consistently is the way to go. And finally, sixth, you have to put God first. Your relationship with God is not just one area of your life. It's your number one concern. Now, in our next program, we're going to go even further down this road. After all, sometimes life just seems to spin out of control, right? Well, we're going to learn how to take back control. I'm Anthony DeStefano, and this is A Travel Guide to Life. See you next time.